Good evening, morning, afternoon. Please let me know if you can hear me. I had some problems a couple of times ago, so yeah. Let me just check something. Okay. Everything looks fine. This is Insanity, where we learn how to use AI to our advantage to create augmentation and learn things before it disappears. And what we did last time was to actually try to get some I was trying to direct GPT to get me a certain structure of code and to create some new enemies that the towers were shooting at. Let's see where the project was, because I have no idea what I did last time. It's a good thing I have all the conversations with GPT. Okay, so I have this bunch of enemies that the towers were shooting at. And I had like this problem where the projectiles, if they were to come from inside the actual tower, they would actually collide with the tower and it would like create this weird bounce. So let's see. What I do want to do as usual to see what solutions GPT can actually give me. So let me try to explain to him as best as possibly I can. I have these projectiles in my tower defense game, and when in Unity, because we need to give it as much context as possible, when we let me think, when the projectiles get shot out of the tower, it collides weirdly with the shape of the tower. Why and how to fix? Okay, this is how it is configured. This is how it is supposed to act. It's not an actual issue. It's not a bug. But the problem is that the projectiles spawn inside or too close to the tower collider. Okay, true that. Continuous collision if off. If the projectile is fast, it clips within the frames. So it says that continuous collision is off, and I'm really curious to see if it actually is, to see just how I configured it in the first place. Okay, so it's discrete. Well, I'm not gonna explain this. If the projectile is fast, it clips into the tower between frames. Then physics panics. What is the difference between continuous and discrete? Yeah, I'm totally asking that. Okay, so basically what it's telling me, discrete is for slow objects, things that don't care if it goes through wall. I'm just looking to see if it gives me like a general difference between the two. Swaps the collider, okay. So, okay, this is the general description. Continuous is more expensive because it tries to figure out setting everything to continuous. Yeah, it how does it actually work with continuous discrete collision? Okay, continuous collision. So yeah, it checks if it hit anything between frames, and I guess this is like the key word. To the discrete one only takes one frame at a time, which is limited, and the continuous one continuously checks to see if something bad happens. Yeah, like it checks all the path that it traveled. This would not actually be the issue, since the projectiles are already spawning inside the tower and they're basically occupying the same space. Use continuous dynamic. Okay, so what is the difference between continuous and continuous dynamic? Yeah, never mind the typos. ChatGPT will just understand everything. Yeah, we actually know that they misspelled it. Anyway, so continuous, it actually, okay, predicts, expands the collider, still allows penetration, but it's better than discrete. Medium shapes, okay. Continuous dynamic. Moves the collider. Yeah, so basically the continuous collision just predicts where the object might go next frame, expands the collider and check that speculative frame, while the dynamic the dynamic is like really exact in what it does in all the calculations, which is designed for fast stuff. But yeah, if we are going to get like a lot of things on the screen, maybe doing this is not the best idea because it's going to grow exponentially. Clean up colliders. Okay, so did it actually tell me how to fix? Ignore collision, spawn the projectile outside the collision tower. Yeah, okay, that would actually be very good. Put towers and okay. This is actually the answer I was looking for. I just missed number 2. It tells me to put the projectiles and towers on separate physics layers and to disable collisions between those two. And let's ask the simple question: how do I do this? You want Unity to stop? Okay. So we create the layers, we assign the layers, and we tell physics by modifying the layer collision matrix. It's pretty accurate, and it gives you the answers and the explanations that I was looking for. So if projectiles should later hit towers from other faction enemies, friendly fire. ways to mess this up, etc, etc, using the default layer for everything like a monster, turning this off. Yeah, this is maybe quite tricky. If your projectile is colliding with its own tower after this, you didn't follow one of the steps. Physics is subtle. If the projectile should later hit the towers, and it might, because I might have actual projectiles which interact with the towers to have the towers shut down, maybe. So I might not be sure, since I don't have a complete design for the thing that I am building, and I'm just going it one step at a time. I do want to see how it advances on the first actual step, because yeah, this actually looked pretty good and it gave all the instructions that you might need to actually build that site. Let's go with this. How do I fix this or implement or whatever we're trying to do? Just give me something. Actual collider mat, you're spawning projectiles at the transform, select your tower, create empty. So basically it tells us to actually create like a muzzle which does not have a collider, which is actually the exit point of the bullets, and the muzzle stays outside the collider, far from the tower. Yeah, why it works. There is something with the setup that we have right now. I'm not even sure how to ask GPT to guide me through this, because I do remember I had some conflicting thoughts regarding this. Like, I have the head and I wanted to have the mesh separately, like the tower base and the head and everything else, but I also needed to rotate the head and the shooting point to actually look at the enemies that it was shooting. This is why these two things actually ended up being grouped together. It ended up being parented. And yeah, at this point, like, maybe you might end up overthinking stuff that just make things work. Like, have the mesh of the entire tower and the tower base or whatever it is, then have the head. There was the collider is just this part right here, and I can actually do the collider a bit smaller, because from what GPT was saying, like, make sure they're not interacting in any way, and this might actually be a bit helpful. We don't need complete collision. This actually makes things easier for the player. If there were some enemies to come attack the tower, you actually get less collision space in this case. Okay, so now what I wanted to actually make sure it worked was to be able to rotate the entire head around the tower. But as you can see right now, like, the result that I wanted to have was something like this. I know what to do, how to fix the problem. I'm thinking, how do I ask GPT to help me to fix the problem? Let's try something. So GPT, here's the deal. I have the muzzle that needs to rotate to look at the enemy, and also keep the projectiles spawn if it doesn't tell me to create a pivot. Also keep the projectile spawn outside the tower. Any ideas how to fix this? Can I fix this? Rotating gun. Yeah, basically rotating gun. Rotation and distance. Okay, turret pivot. Okay. I don't want to say that I'm impressed. It's just finding information of internet. It's nothing special. So the correct mental model: rotation is handled by a pivot that aims at the enemy. Spawn position handles by an offset along the forward direction. If your muzzle rotates and also sits inside the tower, that's your hierarchy. However do you say that? So we have the tower, we have the turret pivot, and we have the muzzle. And what is missing from this is an empty object that is called pivot. That should be in the center, and the head should be offset, and global, no, center, pivot. Okay, and this is what we actually wanted to do, right? Because it's standing here and it's actually rotating, and it's rotating the shooting point too. I should not have any problems with collisions if the shooting point is a bit outside, since the collision only is smaller than the base of the tower. But let's see this. Let's just put it like, I don't know, here. Is this fine? We can have like a fancy animation where it's grows and it comes from inside this, and maybe the collision is activated after. Why didn't GPT actually recommend any of this stuff? Let me ask. And yeah, you got a bunch of code. We already have a bunch of code. I'm pretty sure we have some code somewhere. So GPT, I was thinking, what was I thinking? I was thinking that maybe like when I spawn this projectile, I can spawn it with the collider disabled and with scale of 0, and then grow the projectile to scale 1 and activate collision after. Yes? What do you think? You shouldn't do that. Okay, because so negotiating with physics, bad idea. Not inside the tower, but inside some covered area of the tower. Scale from 0 to 1, like I said, chicken egg, blah. Well, it's not about solving the problem, it's about scaling colliders is messy. True. We haven't fixed the real issue. Overcomplicating everything else. Well, this is not a trick, this is... Well, this is not a trick. I'm trying to fix another problem where I want to make everything nicer and the projectile to appear gradually. Yeah, this is completely about looks. Okay, so do this without breaking collision. Collisions become frame dependent, hits inconsistent. Okay, so never touch the collider or rigid body. Understood. Yeah, so keep them, keep the visuals separate as I was doing earlier. This should be combined somehow. Physics are separate. Visual starts at 0 and then grows. Physics stays the same throughout. Fade in material. Trailer muzzle. What not to do. Okay, do not scale the collider. I understood now. I learned something new. Enabling collider rate. Spawning inside geometry. About your idea. Nothing can be hit. The collider is enabled. Never true. Yeah, so instinct visual works for that. Does not work for physics. Let me confirm with Google. Should I not scale the collider in Unity? Best avoid scaling colliders. Oh yeah, we're talking about baking now. The box collider will match the object. Why shouldn't you scale the collider? This is Godot. You should not scale the collider. Why not? Enter onto physics engine. Get performance, polygon mesh. Yeah, so do not scale the collider. Let's just make this work. Okay. Was this supposed to work? No, it was not supposed to work. Because head transform, I actually need a pivot for the head. And I'm guessing something should happen. If those enemies don't explode again. Okay. Does it look acceptable? It looks like they are rotating until there's no enemy in sight, but we can always... Oh, come on. Stop falling, stop rotating, stop something. I wanted to get like an enemy to bring here, but this is complicated if there are so many of them. Let me do this. If we start with the grid, they will not interact with each other. If they do not interact with each other, they will not have that weird thing in the beginning, and it will be fine. I do want to look closely at the projectiles to see that they actually rotate nicely. Yeah, so the rotation is not smooth because I think it's just switched to be instant. Okay, so I would say that's a fixed problem. I do want to have like this interaction with stuff. I have a tower defense game in Unity. When a projectile hits an enemy, I want to add a physics force to the enemy and destroy the projectile. We're doing something I said that we should not do. I told myself I would not copy paste the code. But basically these are really easy, small things. So if you are bundling them together and you know what you're doing, then asking two small things instead of one, maybe it's not that bad. W setup, you probably did. Yeah, I did that. Enemies have a rigid body, enemies have a collider, projectile have a collider set to trigger or a non-trigger collider with a rigid body. Physics layer should be a complete mess. And it's telling me to compare tags. Okay, why should I compare tags? If you're using triggers instead. So it has this differentiation between on collision enter and on trigger enter. On trigger enter means that the bullets are basically not solid and things can generally go through them. If the collision is not triggered, then it's solid, and then other things might hit on that. Things you're doing wrong. Mass applying force. Yeah, so it's basically giving me a bunch of extra stuff that normal searching might not have taken me on the same path to give me all this information. I could go into details, which I actually is the part that I advise you to do, to take all these things and find more information about them. But yeah, so basically destroy is the thing that destroys the projectile, which I passed it to do, and this other part is the part that just gets the rigid body and adds the force to the enemy that it's colliding with. The one thing that I'm curious is, okay, but what about doing the check on get component? Yeah, I mean an object can only have one tag, right? Doing the check via get component is actually stronger. Doing the check via tags, okay, let's try this. An object can only have just one tag. Also, is there a safer way to use tags other than strings? Yes, tags are painfully limited. Each game object can only have one tag. This was something that always bugged me. It felt like maybe I needed more at times. Layers, components, booleans inside the script. Safer than strings. No built-in alternative. Compare tag is okay, is less useful, but I can always come here and write like emami or mmu. Is less awful on memory, okay. Yeah, create constant class with all the tags. It's safer. No accidental typos. Yeah, so if you care about type safety or multiple categories, components are the better option. So I'm guessing that you're catching on what's with the multiple categories because you can only have one tag. Flying enemies could have yeah, you can put multiple components. The components are the things in the inspector, which you see on every game object. Tags are basically entities decorative sticker. I was wondering what is type safety? What is type safety and why should I care? So make sure you don't accidentally shove the wrong kind of thing into something somewhere. So it has a bunch of examples. Unsafe cast, try get component. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. Like type safety is basically something that I've done wrong, but it doesn't crash. It doesn't tell me that I've done it wrong. It doesn't. And this is a whole other debate if you look into other languages which are not type safe. Like for example, even in Unity we have something C#. Is var in C# type safe? Yeah, this one is okay. I don't explicitly, but it knows how to initialize it with that type, and it's only gonna go strong on that. So using tags, doesn't feel like the best idea. Just one more question. What is the performance on tags versus get component? Which is slower, because if we are doing like a million towers and projectiles, of course Unity is optimized for compare tag. Get components slower. Yeah, so this one just does like a check between two values. This one does a search. Do not do it every frame, just cache it somewhere. Absolutely fine. Per frames, cache components, but the only one tag. Yes, so tags are faster, but limited. But if I cache the get component, are they not the same? You can see that I'm always like trying to get more out of exact things that it told me, because it knows how to continue on that idea. Stops being a search. The real difference is always a quick string check. First call is slower, and then it's super fast. So cache the rigid body, that means save it in a variable before using it, and you have type safe code with equal performance and multiple options, tags. So yeah, it's a lot more robust to do things that way. And if we are actually going back, because I was trying to do something, we need more features in GPT, like getting timestamps and getting bookmarks in the conversation, because I really don't know what I was talking about. I do remember that I stopped here and I went on a tangent, and we can also have like branch in a new chat if you want to save the point where you just stopped. Oh right, I was doing the collision. Great. Assume you have the enemy script. Wait, why the enemy script? Assume you have your enemies in an enemy script. Oh yeah, because of course it's the enemy script. On collision enter, on collision enter. Try get component, out enemy. I like this part. It seems easier. If it has an enemy component, it's an enemy. Avoiding calling get component twice. Better than tags. Yeah, put enemy on something that should not be knockable. If you have a child collider, Again, it's really thorough and taking us through a lot of possible problems, because I do have a child component. And wait, where's the enemy script? I don't have an enemy script. Need to create that. Create. And this is not even doing anything. This is like I forgot what they were called. Like a tagging script. And of course we're going to go inside the prefab and assign the script on the base of the parent. That's where it should go. Once it's done recompiling. And I could have just... Where's the projectile? Here's the projectile. So we have awake, we have start, we have set speed, and now we have on collision enter. And let's say the force is like 10F. Destroy game object. Okay. So we're trying to get the components. Doesn't seem to be any problem with this. And okay, now I can add the enemy script. This is not going to work if you have been following closely. Think for a second why this will not work. And the towers are starting to... Wait, this is actually working. Is it doing... What's it doing? Because I was expecting it to get the collision from inside the hierarchy, because it's not on the top of the enemy. What codes did it give me? Try get component. What does this code do? Okay, let's see. Let's highlight it with the thing that I'm trying to ask to make my life easier. I use this, but I have the collider on a child in the enemy. Should this not have been get component in parent? Question mark. If your enemy collider is on a child object, refers to the child, not the parent that actually has the enemy. But no, I meant that it actually worked. Unity rigid body. Okay. So Unity rigid body and most scripts are inherited in a hierarchy in the ways that often let you hit the child and still manipulate the parents indirectly. If enemy was on the parent, so basically it interacts with the child collider, but it gives me the script on the parent, which is what I found weird. Wouldn't normally work. Is also attached to the child, or here he is shallow enough. How is this scientific? I mean, how is this? Exact, no, it's not exact scene, exact science. I would say it's good enough. It's working. Don't try to fix things. I mean, what happens if I remove the collider? Should I just... I'm trying to, I don't know, copy it, so, okay. I hope I can paste it later. Because is it taking into account only the rigid body? Of course, they don't have rigid bodies anymore. Anyway, there's one more thing that I want to do. I need the enemy to head towards the objective. Yes. Make enemy go. Nav mesh agent. I do not want the nav mesh agent. Manual movement. Can you give me a rigid body push force stuff something? Projectile on collision enter. What are you doing to me? Wait, this was not for... No, this was for the enemy, which was okay. Alright. Enemy has a rigid body, enemy has some kind of script. Projectile hits and applies force. No, that is completely not what I asked. No, I meant use rigid body force to make the enemies move. Okay, so we have like the enemy script. Does this look good to you? It breaks a bunch of coding principles, but does it do anything bad? I don't think so. It's minimal, it's isolated, and drag is obsolete because ChatGPT is getting information from 2021 or something. No, I do not want to update the information. What I do want to do is just do a quick test and see if weird stuff happens, because I want it to be weird. They need to move towards an objective. Okay, so I need to create an objective, like create empty objective 0, 0, 0. I need like an emptier space. Okay, and underneath this objective we are going to have a 3D object that's like just add a cylinder. What? No, that's not what I wanted. And puts the cylinder, like create some sort of towers or something. Maybe this one makes smaller. And we have like a cacti. And we're going to say that our objective is this. We can place the objective as a transform, and all the enemies should actually go in that direction. It's not even set the camera. Like the camera is showing, I don't know what. Okay, so this is where balancing comes in place, because the move force of the enemy should be a lot slower than the firing force of the projectiles. And when you have that specific balance, something happens. And you're going to just see all the enemies slowly moving towards that. Let's add more. I mean, I don't think I even had to stop the game. Where was my base towers? Range 20, okay. 600 range. Fire rate 10. I don't know. Does it look like fun? No. Should we try to make it fun? I have no idea. Okay, so now it's like firing rapidly, and it's okay. What happens? I mean, I didn't create a pool for all these projectiles, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. Okay, now we have something. Like the enemies are under rapid fire while they're trying to get close to that, and the towers are going crazy with bullets. Like, where is the balance in this? There's one last variable that I want to expose, and I'm not sure where I put that, like the projectile. The projectile has a speed. Tower shooter. How did I put, okay, tower base and tower shooter. The tower base and the tower shooter. I'm gonna have like one extra stuff. I'm not gonna even ask GPT for this because I can do it faster. Attack. The attack goes. The attack goes to shoot once instead. Shoot projectile prefab. Game object projectile prefab. So the this is just easier. Projectile prefab. I don't know, we're just going to say attack equals attack. At this point I'm just speedrunning through the entire thing. No, I do not want to do that. Okay, and like this should be times attack. uh, I'll just do something really fast for testing purposes only. Public float attack. So at this point the attack should be variable and it should be configurable from the tower shooter script. I do not want to update any of the other scripts. What I do want to do is actually find the balance that is sustainable and watchable. Attack. Okay. Let's say the attack is 10 for all my towers. Oh, come on. Range 600, fire rate, let's say 4. And the enemies have like 5. Normally this would actually be set up differently. Okay, so what am I missing? Why are they not firing? They're not firing, are they? What are you doing, my towers? 1, 10, range lower, 200, 20. There's just one of them attacking. This is a ridiculous bug. Did I lose the reference? Projectile prefab. It seems so. It could be. No, it's still here. Oh, come on. This is like some weird bug that we could ask GPT to debug it. We could do that. Range, go with 20. We have the objective, we have these things. This can have like an enemy spawner or general manager script to actually configure all these variables. But let's see what. Okay, now they're all shooting. Incredible. So yeah, we have a bunch of enemies that are trying to invade us and a bunch of towers that are trying to chase them away. And this would actually be smarter if the towers would attack the enemies that were closer to the objective. Move force, let's move this to 5. And fire rate to 6. And attack to 20. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. So the enemies are just like heading towards the tower if you're looking at this. My computer is going to crash at one point because I keep spawning the projectiles at a crazy rate. And one day we are going to do a pool for them. Or we're just going to release a game created like this, and the actual gameplay is how much your mobile can resist this. Let's take this one step further. Fire rate. Let's lower this before it fries. Okay. Didn't I set the projectiles to destroy themselves after a few seconds? Whatever, doesn't matter. This would be a lot nicer if they actually had colors or special effects. Yeah, I could see this work. Now we can just stay and watch stuff happen. And they're just rotating towards the tower. They're like, no, 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 look at this one, look at this one. It almost, look at this, look at this. Okay. I'm almost sorry for them. Yeah, so I guess this is where I will leave you for the night. This is a statement, not a game. This is like a never-ending machine that neither of these parts are going to win at the end. This is the perfect balance. Okay, have a good week. See you next week. We're going to make something interesting. And a Merry Christmas. Be jolly.